You walk up to your car. The black plastic trimmed the bumpers, the side cladding, and the window surround. It is gray, chalky, faded around the edges. The plastic shows the faint horizontal streaking that comes from years of O-driven oxidation. Up close, the surface has the powdery texture of a chalkboard rather than the deep, glossy black it came with from the factory. The car is 5 years old and it looks 15. Most people accept this. A few replace the whole bumper. The actual fix is sitting in your garage right now. At hack number 1, the 1-minute heat gun method that restores 10 years of fade in a single pass with zero product applied to the surface. Before that, 14 techniques. Most drivers never figure out, including a 360-second fix and a kitchen item that does the job of a $30 trim restorer. Let us get into it. Hack 15. Paste shoe polish is not just for shoes. Pick up a tin of black paste shoe polish at any pharmacy or dollar store. The paste version, not the liquid. The same compound that restores leather works on automotive plastic and rubber trim for the exact same reason. The trim has lost its surface oils to prove exposure. The polish replaces them with carnauba wax and black dyes. Work a small amount into the faded trim with a soft cloth using short circular strokes. Let it sit for 60 seconds. Buff away the excess with a dry rag. The matty black depth returns immediately. A trim restoration kit at the auto parts store runs $15 to $25. A tin of paste shoe polish costs $3 and lasts for a year of applications. Up next, something from your kitchen pantry that costs even less and works just as fast. Hack 14, olive oil from your kitchen. A few drops on a microfiber cloth, never directly onto the trim itself. Work it across the faded surface with long, even strokes. Buff off any excess immediately with a second dry cloth. The natural oils in olive oil absorb into the polypropylene and ABS plastic that automotive trim is made of, replacing the lost surface oils that of radiation drove out over years of exposure. The trim darkens visibly within seconds. The result is not as long-lasting as a dedicated trim restorer. It holds for 2 to 4 weeks under normal conditions, but it costs pennies per application. The bottle is already in your kitchen, and the next relocation takes 90 seconds. A premium trim restorer costs $20 to $30 per bottle. A jug of olive oil from the grocery store costs $8 and treats every trim panel on your car 100 times over. Hack 13. Before you restore color to faded trim, you have to remove the chalky oxidation layer that is sitting on the surface. Standard cloth smears it. Rough sponges scratch the plastic. The magic eraser is the exact correct tool for this specific task. A melamine foam pad with microscopic structure that lifts oxidation without abrasion. Dampen the magic eraser with water. Add a single drop of olive oil or any light oil to its surface. Work it across the chalky trim in light overlapping passes. The white chalk transfers onto the eraser. The fresh plastic underneath is exposed. Apply your restoration product of choice immediately afterward because that fresh surface is exactly when it bonds best. A trim restoration prep solution costs $12 at the auto parts store. A 4-pack of magic erasers costs $4 at the grocery store and does the same job. Hack 12. Peanut butter on automotive trim. It sounds like an internet trick that should not work. It works because of what? Peanut butter actually contains roughly 50% natural oil suspended in protein and fiber. Those oils penetrate dehydrated polymer surfaces the same way olive oil does, with the added benefit of the protein and fiber acting as a mild microabrasive that lifts the top oxidation layer simultaneously. Apply a thin layer of plain peanut butter to a microfiber cloth. Work it across the faded trim with firm circular strokes for about 60 seconds per section. Wipe off the excess with a clean, damp cloth. Rinse with clean water. The trim is visibly darker. The oxidation layer is gone. The same restoration that takes 3 separate products at a detail shop happens with 1 item from your pantry. One qualification: use plain peanut butter, not chunky. The peanut pieces in chunky will scratch the surrounding paint if you're not careful. Hack 11. Tire shine spray repurposed on plastic trim. The same product you spray on your sidewall is essentially a silicone-based water displacement compound with optical brightening agents. Sprayed onto cleaned faded trim, it darkens the surface and creates a hydrophobic barrier that repels the very thing that fades trim in the first place, which is moisture combined with youth. Spray a light coat onto a microfiber cloth, never directly onto the trim where it can mist onto adjacent paint. Work it into the surface. Buff off any excess immediately. The matty black depth returns, and the surface beads water for weeks. This works particularly well on rubberized trim like door surrounds and bumper inserts. A bottle of tire shine costs $8 to $12 at any auto parts store and treats your trim a dozen times over while still doing its job on tires. You're already paying for it. Now you know it does 2 jobs. Hack 10. Hair conditioner on plastic trim. The same product that softens dehydrated hair contains exactly the compounds that revive dehydrated polymer surfaces. Cetyl alcohol, panthenol, silicone emollients. The fading you see on your trim is the surface losing those exact same kinds of compounds to exposure. Apply a small amount of any standard hair conditioner to a microfiber cloth. Work it across the trim in firm circular motions. Let it sit for 5 minutes. Buff off the excess with a clean, dry cloth. The trim regains depth and softness immediately. The result holds for several weeks because the conditioner compounds are absorbed into the polymer rather than sitting on top. A bottle of cheap hair conditioner from the dollar store costs $2 and treats the trim on your car repeatedly for months. A premium automotive trim conditioner with the same active compounds costs $25 per bottle. Same chemistry, different packaging. Hack 9. WD-40 has a place in trim restoration, a controlled place with honest caveats. The WD-40 is a water displacement compound, which is what the WD in the name stands for. Sprayed lightly on faded trim, it darkens the surface immediately and creates a temporary moisture barrier. The result holds for 1 to 2 weeks under normal conditions before evaporating off. Apply it to a microfiber cloth, wipe across the trim, buff off excess. Here's the caveat that most tutorials leave out. WD-40 attracts dust over time because its base is petroleum. Use it for a quick fix before a date, a sale viewing, a road trip photo. Do not use it as a long-term restoration strategy. A can of WD-40 costs $3 and lasts years. A specialty quick trim restore at the auto store costs $15 and does exactly the same job for the same duration. For permanent restoration, keep watching. Hack 8, a hairdryer on faded trim. This is preparation, not the final result, but it is the step that multiplies the effectiveness of every product you apply afterward. Set a standard hairdryer to medium heat, roughly 130 to 150 degrees F at the nozzle, not high heat, which can scorch the polymer surface. Hold it 6 to 8 in from the trim surface. Move it slowly across each panel for about 30 seconds per section, sweeping back and forth rather than holding it in one spot. The gentle warming opens the microscopic pores of the polymer surface and softens the dehydrated polymer chain, enough that whatever conditioning product you apply next penetrates deeper and bonds longer. You can literally see the trim darken slightly under the heat as bound oils mobilize toward the surface. Apply your conditioner, trim restore, or oil immediately while the surface is still warm. The product absorbs measurably better than on a cold surface. The treatment effect doubles in duration. This is a technique professional detailers use on every trim restoration job at the shop and never advertise because it costs the shop nothing and adds an hour of charged labor. Hack 7. Identify the type of plastic before you treat it. This single step separates restorations that last from restorations that lift off in 2 weeks. Automotive trim comes in 2 main families. ABS plastic, which is harder, shinier, and used for chrome, look, trim, and most interior panels, and polypropylene or PP plastic, which is softer, matte, and used for most exterior body cladding, bumper inserts, and window surrounds. The two require different products. An oil-based conditioner that penetrates PP just sits on top of abs and wipes off in hours. A dedicated trim dye that bonds to abs does not absorb into PP and looks streaky. The test is simple. Press your fingernail into a hidden corner of the trim with firm pressure. ABS resists and shows a faint white mark. PP gives slightly under pressure and shows no white mark. Once you know which you're working with, you choose the right product the first time. 30 seconds of testing saves $30 of the wrong product. Hack 6. Mask the paint before you apply anything to the trim. This is the step that separates a clean restoration from one that damages the car around it. Any trim restoration product, shoe polish, dye, oil-based conditioner that crosses onto the painted body panel either stains the clear coat or fills the panel gap with a film that is harder to remove than the original problem. Run blue or green low-tack painter's tape along the full perimeter of every trim section you're about to treat. Press the inner edge of the tape firmly against the trim to paint the border. The tape is the containment line. Everything inside it is your work zone. Everything outside is protected. Apply your product, let it set. Remove the tape before the product fully cures. 2 minutes of taping prevents an hour of trying to remove a trim dye stain from your clear coat with a polishing compound. A roll of painter's tape costs $3 at the hardware store and lasts dozens of restorations. Hack 5. Boiled linseed oil on faded trim. This is the technique that delivers the deepest penetration of any oil-based method, and it is the technique that woodworkers have used to revive aged wood for 200 years for the exact same chemical reason. Boil linseed oil polymerizes as it cures. What that means in practice, when you apply it to faded trim, it absorbs into the porous surface, and then over the next 24 hours, it hardens into a flexible film inside the polymer matrix itself. The chemistry is the same one used in oil paintings to preserve canvases. For centuries, the oil molecules cross-link with atmospheric oxygen to form a solid network, becoming part of the substrate rather than sitting on top of it. The restoration lasts 6 months or longer per application. Apply a small amount to a clean cloth. Work it into the trim with firm circular strokes. Let the first coat sit for 10 minutes. Wipe off any excess that has not been absorbed. Apply a second light coat after 4 hours. Let it cure overnight. The trim depth is permanent until the new film slowly wears. Use the boiled variant. Specifically, raw linseed oil cures over weeks rather than hours, and the trim stays sticky during the entire cure window. Critical safety note: linseed oil-soaked rags can spontaneously combust as they cure. Always dispose of used rags by soaking them in water before throwing them away. Hack 4. Solution. Finish. Trim Black is the specialty product that does what every household trick on this list does, but with chemistry specifically engineered for automotive trim. It is not an oil that absorbs, it is a dye that bonds to the polymer surface and replaces the lost color permanently. One application lasts up to 12 months. A 4-oz bottle costs $16 and restores every trim panel on the average sedan 3 to 4 times over. The application is straightforward. Clean the trim with a degreaser, dry it completely. Apply a thin coat with a foam applicator pad in single direction strokes. Wait 30 seconds. Wipe off any excess with a microfiber cloth. The transformation is immediate and dramatic. What was chalky gray becomes deep, saturated black in under 60 seconds. A second coat after 15 minutes locks in the result for the maximum duration. 2 important rules. Use the foam applicator, not a regular cloth that will pick up too much product and create streaks, and mask everything around the trim per hack 6 because this dye will permanently stain anything it touches. Hack 3, the strip and re-dye technique for severely chalked trim that nothing else has been able to save. When a trim panel is so faded that even solution finish applies streaky, the problem is not the product. The problem is the oxidation layer that is preventing the new dye from bonding evenly. You need to strip that layer first. Apply a degreasing solvent to the trim. Isopropyl alcohol at 70% concentration works. Work it across the entire trim panel with a clean white cloth using firm passes. The white cloth will pick up a chalky gray residue. That is the oxidation lifting off. Keep wiping with fresh sections of the cloth until the cloth comes back clean. The trim now looks lighter and slightly rough. That is correct. You have exposed the unweathered polymer underneath. Now apply your dye of choice. Because the surface is uniformly stripped, the dye absorbs uniformly. The result is a saturated, even black with no streaks anywhere. This is the technique that professional detailers use on customer cars that came in with trim everyone else gave up on. 30 minutes of work, 2 products, under $8 total in materials. Hack 2, Cerakote ceramic trim coat applied after restoration. This is the step that transforms a restoration that lasts months into a restoration that lasts years. Cerakote is a ceramic-based clear coat formulated specifically for automotive trim and rubber surfaces. The same nanoceramic chemistry that protects high-end firearm finishes scaled down for consumer application. Applied over restored trim, it creates a hydrophobic barrier that blocks radiation, moisture, and contamination from reaching the polymer surface underneath. But the damage cycle that caused the fading in the first place stops cold. The application is critical. The trim must be completely clean and completely dry before you start. Any residual oil from previous treatments will prevent the ceramic from bonding to the surface, and the coating will peel within weeks. Apply a single light coat with the included applicator, working in overlapping strokes across the entire panel. Let it flash for 30 seconds. Apply a second coat in the perpendicular direction. The crosshatch pattern of the 2 coats fills any micro gaps in the first layer. Let it cure for 24 hours, undisturbed. Do not park outside during the cure window morning dew or rain on uncured Cerakote leaves permanent water spots. The result is a trim that looks restored and stays that way for 2 to 3 years under normal exposure conditions. A 30 ml bottle of Cerakote trim coat costs about $25 and treats every trim panel on a sedan 4 to 5 times over. A professional ceramic coating service for trim costs $200 to $400 at a detail shop. The product is the same. The application takes 15 minutes. And now the number 1 trick, the 1-minute heat gun method. This is the technique that restores 10 years of fade in a single pass without applying a single product to the surface. This is counterintuitive for anyone who has ever seen plastic warp under heat. Most owners assume any application of a heat gun to plastic ends in deformation. The temperature control and the motion pattern are what make this technique safe and effective. Here is what is actually happening chemically. The black color in automotive trim is locked into the polymer at the molecular level. What fades over time is not the color itself. It is the surface texture that develops a microscopic crystalline structure as of degraded polymer chains rearrange. That crystalline surface scatters light, which is what your eye reads as gray and chalky. The original deep black is still underneath 2 microns down. Heat melts that surface crystalline layer back into the polymer matrix. The smooth original surface returns. The deep black returns with it. A standard heat gun set to its lowest temperature setting around 300 degree F. Hardware store models from Wagner, Black & Decker, or Harbor Freight all work the same. What matters is that the unit has a low setting in the 250 to 350 degree range. Not a single high power setting that runs at 1000 degree, held 4 to 6 in from the trim surface. Moved in slow, continuous passes back and forth across the panel. Never stopped on any single spot for more than 2 seconds. The trim visibly darkens under the heat as the surface melts and reflows. Move on to the next section. The result is a uniformly black trim that looks like the day the car left the factory. The result lasts 6 to 12 months depending on your climate. Apply a thin coat of hair conditioner per hack 10 immediately afterward while the surface is still warm. The freshly reflowed polymer absorbs conditioner more deeply than untreated trim, and the combined treatment can hold for 18 months or longer before any visible fade returns. The critical rule? Never stop moving the heat gun. A stationary heat gun on plastic for more than 3 seconds will warp or melt the panel permanently. Slow and continuous is the only safe technique. Practice on a hidden section first. The bottom edge of a rear bumper is the standard test zone before touching visible panels. A heat gun from the hardware store costs $20 and does this job for the life of the tool. A full trim replacement on a 5-year-old sedan costs $400 to $800 at the body shop. 60 seconds per panel. 0 product applied. The factory finish returns. Here is what faded plastic trim is actually telling you. Not that the trim is broken, not that the trim needs replacing, that the surface oils evaporated, the polymer surface restructured, and the original black is still right there under 2 microns of degraded crystalline layer. $20 of heat gun and 60 seconds per panel is the difference between a car that looks 15 years old and one that looks like it just rolled off the showroom floor.